Hi, I'm Kelly Quiney, and you're listening to Stepping Off the Path. This is the place where we talk honestly about the moments that change everything and the courage it takes to trust what you feel, not what you're told. Today's episode is a special one. Let's dive in. Today on Stepping Off the Path, I'm joined by someone who is fierce, funny, and somehow wakes up at 4 a.m. on purpose. Julie Ciardi. Julie is a former Fortune 50 executive who walked away from what most people would call a dream career at IBM to build a life rooted in alignment, truth, and deep service. Today, her human design and business mentorship supports women and a few good men across more than 30 countries. What I love most about Julie is how grounded and refreshing she is. She's not afraid to call it exactly as she sees it, and she's willing to push back against the old ways we've been told to do business, especially now that so many of those models simply don't work for women anymore. She lives by the motto of over-delivering without self-sacrificing, brings a killer sense of humor, has incredible hair, you'll go and look and you'll agree, and is fiercely committed to helping women become who they're meant to be, not who the world has told them to be. And while her book is called 50 Not Finished, you absolutely do not need to be 50 to read it. If you're a woman who feels stuck, restless, or like you are meant for something more, this book speaks directly to you. Julie doesn't teach from theory, she teaches from lived experience, from staying connected to her dream when it didn't make sense to anyone else, to rebuilding her happiness from the inside out, to redefining success entirely on her own terms. You're going to love this conversation. Julie, welcome to Stepping Off the Path.
I'm going to invite you to introduce me on every stage and podcast forever. And that you just gave me the chills. That was such a beautiful introduction. And thank you so much. I feel like you know me so well. And as my father, I've said this before to you, as my father would always say that a happy heart is an understood heart. And I feel so seen and understood in that intro. So thank you. That was really special.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And so I'd love to go back to the beginning, Julie, or one of your beginnings. Um, on paper, you had the life that everyone would say is amazing, senior leadership at IBM, financial security, great vacations, big house, lovely family. But inside, something wasn't lining up anymore. And was there a moment that you knew you just couldn't keep doing what you were doing?
It was such an accumulation of moments over like a solid set, I would say 15 years. I knew for 15 years. And there were all these moments scattered around like that 15 years, and I would just bury it. Right. So I would
Mm.
have a moment of like my soul absolutely telling me you are not meant to be here. I didn't know where. I just knew I was meant for entrepreneurship. I did know that. I knew that when I was pregnant with my daughter. She is now 22 years old. So it was a long time ago that I knew. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't know what it entailed. It seemed risky. This was before the online space existed the way that it exists today. I thought it needed to be a brick and mortar. So I was like, not interested about, or I was interested. I was just scared. I was really scared that I would lose everything and it was too risky financially. So I didn't do it. But I will tell you, there was a moment where there's two moments. One, I was with my youngest. He's now 11 years old. So it was a solid probably 10 years ago. And I was in his nursery trying
Mhm.
to rock him to sleep, as we all, all could know of, like rocking your child to sleep. And I was reading a book while I was rocking him to sleep. And it was called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying
Mm.
by Bronnie Ware. And that pull in my soul to do something that I wanted to do because I was miserable at work. I mean, every Sunday night I had a stomach ache every Monday morning. I didn't
Mm.
want to go to work and all the things. And that happened for 20 years. When I read that book and I realized that I would regret, like if I died tomorrow or if I lived to be 85 and 90, 100, and if I looked back, I would have massive regret on not taking a chance on what I was meant to do in this world. And so that was the first big one. And that kind of pushed me into a true exploratory phase of, well, what could this be? I know I have to do something. And the second big moment, I was on a plane flying from New York to Dallas, Texas, where I had a team at IBM, and I would fly there and meet with them often. And I was reading a book by a CEO, a female CEO, Jessica Heron, and it was called Hello Extraordinary. And she did what I wanted to do. She had been, an executive at a company and two young daughters, and she left. She started a jewelry company, became CEO, like loving what she created. And I highlighted that book. I was, underlining it and marking it up. And I read the whole book in the flight down there. And by the
Mm.
time I landed, I said, this is happening. If she can do it, I can do this. If she can do it, I can do this. So by the time that I flew back from that trip and landed back in New York, when I sat with my husband, I said, this is happening. Like, I really want your support, but like, I have to do this now. And
Mm.
so it was such a series of a lead up of moments and then two really big moments of just knowing, like
Mm.
knowing that this had to happen or I would regret it for the rest of my life.
Wow. And something I think I love that you shared, or I should say, first of all, that was one of the things that really struck me about what you shared, because I also spent 20 years in a job I hated. Totally get that feeling of being sick the night before work. And I'm sure there are many women who would be listening who get it and have the same fears about leaving. And one of the things I really like is that you shared, you didn't just, maybe it was further back when you realized it wasn't an immediate overnight leap. I think you said maybe 2 years before you actually left IBM.
Yeah.
Um,
It was
and
about, yeah, I think it was like 18 months
yeah.
from the time, 18 months to 2 years that after that moment that I just shared with you, the this is
Mhm.
happening, that it actually happened, that I actually left, right? So
Yeah.
2016 was when I had the moment. 2018 was when I actually left
Right.
corporate career. So yeah,
Yeah.
it takes some time to
Yeah.
potentially, do what's needed, but the decision was made.
Right.
And when you make the decision, I call it the now goal.
Yeah.
You've brought it out of being a someday thing
Mhm.
to something you're actively working on now. And
Mhm.
that's the difference maker. It might not be overnight, but it's happening because you've
Yeah.
decided it's going to be so.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was thinking, what helped you hold that vision in those 18 months? Keep moving towards it even when it felt impossible.
Yeah. Well, it was podcasts like this.
Yeah.
So for me, I just needed to stay tethered to
Mhm.
what possible, even though I couldn't quite see it for myself yet. Like I knew where I was going. I didn't have the success yet that I wanted yet, but I knew that I was going to do everything in my power to get there. And so I did two big things. Number one, I was always listening to podcasts of women with stories like this to share where they came from, the success they had, any nuggets of how they did it, I would take. And also I invested fairly early on with personal growth and development, whether
Right.
it was books, podcasts, some of those things are free, some you pay for, or actually working with a coach or being in like a community of women trying to do the same thing really got me by,
Mm.
because there were moments of tears, of crying, of fighting with my husband. Like, is this
Mm.
really going to work? Especially right after I left that big salary. And if it wasn't for the other women that I was in community with that were trying to do the same thing, I might have given up. honestly,
Mm.
right? Like, we're only so strong, you know? And it was that camaraderie and that support and showing what's possible that really was my fuel.
Mm. And I think it's probably important for people to hear that you were so committed to this that you sold your house.
I did.
Like,
That's how supportive my husband was because he agreed
oh,
to it. Like,
mhm,
when I
mhm,
came home and I'm like, "All right," because I love spreadsheets and I love doing math and I love, like, seeing what's possible, and so I came back and I was like, "All right, so we're gonna do this, but it's gonna require one big thing." And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "We're gonna have to sell the house and we're gonna have to downsize." And he's like, "What?" But then he was like, "All right, that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make any sense that we're gonna stay tied to this big house with these crazy taxes and you not be happy. Like, what is the point of that?" So he was so
mhm,
supportive in a very big decision to support my goals and my dreams. And, you know, it's funny, we're still in the house that we downsized to, and I love it. And to me, this home feels like home so much more than the other house that we had. And it was just such a beautiful aligned thing that happened, but it was a really scary decision and
mhm.
all in pursuit of my goal and dream, which being a mom of 3, a family of
Yes.
5, I felt very, very guilty about that. And you know, I'm like, who am I? Like, well, I'm going to uproot my family, make everyone move. I mean, I kept all the kids in the same schools. I wasn't going to do that to them. That was the
Mhm.
requirement. We had to move in a certain radius so that they wouldn't have to change schools or anything like that. I even had a requirement, I did this for myself, that their bedrooms had to be the same size or bigger than our
Wow.
other. So the overall, like, house didn't have to be bigger, but, like, there, because when you're teenagers, like, you just want your room, you know? And so every house I looked at, like, the bedrooms had to be big enough and they had to be in the same school, but I had guilt about it. I mean, it's a big decision for the whole family, for mom to
Mhm,
pursue her dreams when she already had a good career. Like, what are we doing, right?
mhm,
But they were all so supportive, and I mean, we're 7.5 years past that now, which is
mhm.
crazy to me.
Yeah.
That was summer of 2018, right? So, 2017 we sold the house. So I mean, we are way past that. I think you can't know, right? The quote that I say often, with Steve Jobs, is you can't connect the dots looking, forward. You can only connect them looking back. And now
Mhm.
looking back, I can see that that huge move, literal move, um, actually was one of the best things that happened to our family for lots of different reasons, but also the pursuit of my dream ended
Mhm.
up having an incredible impact on my children, in terms of what they see as possible for themselves as they are entering the workforce. My daughter
Mm.
graduated from university and she's starting work right now, and my other son is a year and a half out from doing the same. And they've got big goals and dreams, and they both say, well, they're going to initially work for someone else in their industry, learn, and then start their own business. And
Wow.
I don't know that they would have said that if I hadn't made this move, because we didn't know anyone other than, like, construction companies or,
Mhm.
like, restaurants. We knew people that owned businesses like that. But, they, I think, are seeing how what's possible for them is so much different than I think if I had just stayed in a job that didn't serve me.
Mm. And I think that contrasts so beautifully to, you're really honest about the fact that when you left, things didn't go initially wonderfully. And so they got to a point where your husband was supportive, but it was kind of like, Julie, this isn't quite going how we planned. And I wonder about staying true to your dream and holding on to it when even those closest to you who are very supportive but start to get worried, right? Holding on to your dream when it is causing some friction with those closest to you.
It's hard, right? Again, being a part of communities of others doing the same thing is huge, because I know when we got into one of our lowest lows, and I mean, I was crying. He was, he was like, I got to leave for a while. It was bad. I went to my community that I
Mhm.
was in, and I just said, I'm devastated here. I know I want this, and but at what cost, And
Mhm.
so many people came up, and I felt like it was all virtual, right? We were all in like a virtual group together, but I really feel like they came up and lifted my arms up, and like helped me to find that strength and to stay the course. And I made the decision that even if I had to go back to some kind of supplemental income, like if I didn't want to go back to corporate in any way, but if I needed to do consulting, if I needed to land a part-time role, I would do that while I pursued my dream because I wasn't going to give up the dream.
Mm.
But had really started to look at ways in which I could supplement my income while I was growing. And it's so funny because I love how God, universe, source works because thank goodness none of those things panned out. I put in an application like with Amy Porterfield. Like I put in an application, to be a coach with like another coach. I don't even remember his last name, but he was like had a big coaching practice. And so I'm like, okay, great. Maybe I can do that. Like so I can at least still be doing what I want to do, but like doing it for someone else while I'm building my own business. And I really started to pursue those things. I even had interviews, all the things, right?
Mm.
Not with the Amy one. Amy one, and thank God that didn't work out. It was like content marketing, like because marketing's my background, and so
Yeah.
I just thank God none of those panned out. I would have been miserable. I wasn't meant to. I'm definitely not meant to work for someone else. There's no doubt about that. Like I am not meant to work for someone else. Um, and I just held on to that dream, knowing that I would do whatever it took and I think it's actually helped my husband a little bit that I was having some of those interviews and I was pursuing something in addition at the same time. But right when all that was happening, it lit a fire under me even more. And that is when the business started taking off. And that was, the end of 2019, very early 2020 is where the business went from, okay, I can make money sporadically, right? Like in fits and stops, to I am now making money consistently and it's consistently growing. Like that was when everything changed. And I'm just so proud of myself for staying the course, even though
Mhm.
all signs pointed to like, this isn't working, go back to get a job. And, but I think, as Bob Proctor would say, like if your desire for the dream is strong enough, like you're going
Mhm.
to do what you need to do and you're going to become who you need to become, the more important part, to
Mm.
make that happen. And that desire was deep.
Yeah. And I love what you've explained there. And I was thinking, so many of your mentors who you talk about as well in 50 Not Finished, there's a real running theme of self-responsibility and courage. And I think you shared that, you were thinking back in 2015 when you were at IBM and in it, you were kind of outsourcing your happiness to your kids and your husband, and you were looking at them to make you happy. And everything that you've explained then, it's like when I was reading 50 Not Finished, I had this real uh, experience of the more self responsibility you got, the happier you got.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I don't know if you talk about human design here on the podcast much,
We
but
will.
okay. I got to tell you, I mean, freedom is
Mhm.
one of the biggest lessons that I
Mhm.
was here to learn, and the freedom coming in self-responsibility. So self-responsibility actually was one of my biggest is one my biggest life lesson is that,
Mhm.
I always would say like the door to the prison cell was open. It wasn't even
Yeah.
locked. It actually took the courage for me to get up and walk out of it. And I thought I was trapped by outside circumstances. So yeah, self-responsibility, um, it is one of the most powerful gifts that you can give yourself if you can truly truly understand what it is to live by that. When you live with true self responsibility, you do not blame anyone, anything, any circumstance for where you're at. Things are going to happen. You
Yeah.
have the responsibility of how you're going to react, how you're going to handle it, what you're going to do. And it's a very freeing feeling, and it
Mm.
does bring so much happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking it's so easy to fall into self-attack, right? Well, I'm responsible. This has happened. It's because I'm not good enough. I made this mistake. And do you relay that to a woman who is in that space of, well, it's my fault, and really letting them know that actually there's freedom in self-responsibility, there's joy.
Yeah, it's to me, it's this feeling of no matter how bad something might get, or maybe you do make a mistake, or things don't go the way you planned because you did fall short, or you didn't do what you said you were going to do, or whatever it's going to be, that when you have that self responsibility, you can change any circumstance that, or even relationship that you're in, which that was the last one for me to really understand, is that it
Mm,
wasn't just getting self responsibility to then have happiness in career and business. But when you bring that self responsibility into a relationship, and a relationship that really matters to you, one person can change the entire relationship. And that was huge for me to understand, and that self-responsibility. I think that the most important thing to remember is that as humans, we are never going to do it right. We are always going to, fall short of what we expected of ourselves, or we're going to get disappointed with someone or something or ourself, or, it will feel like it's our fault that something happened, whatever it is, right? And that never goes away.
mhm,
So it's not like all of a sudden you live in this world where now you're like so enlightened that you don't have these thoughts about yourself, or you don't have no, absolutely. But you don't stay there. So the thoughts, the feelings, whether it's overwhelm or self worth, or, upset that something didn't go the way you wanted. Maybe, you know, you had a consult and you really thought the client was going to close and they didn't close, and you're beating yourself up, or you're disappointed, whatever it is. You're going to feel that way. And that's totally normal. That's like being a human.
mhm,
But do you stay there, or do you do something about it? And I think one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten was to get curious over defeated. So
yeah,
if you stay in defeat, which is, just a terrible prison to be in, right? Is defeat. If you instead look at any situation of like, what can I learn here? What didn't go well? What could I learn from that? How could I do this better next time? Who do I want to be in this situation when it happens again? You will see massive change in your life and your relationships and your business and everything, because there's always lessons to be learned in
mhm,
every falling short or failure. And anyone that's here that wants to do something big, you're going to fail your way towards that outcome.
mhm,
Never is like perfect steps, and every step is exactly how you planned it to be. I mean, that is just a rare unicorn that barely ever happens. So I think that the more you understand that, the less you're thrown off by it.
mm,
I think people get devastated and totally thrown off
yeah,
when something doesn't go the way that either they wanted or they expected, or they feel like they, are embarrassed, or like, oh my God, I can't believe I, held that event and no one came, and now I just want to hide in a hole or whatever, right? If you stay there devastated or embarrassed or whatever, you'll never be able to move forward. If you
mm,
feel that way initially and then you go, okay, interesting. So why didn't anyone come?
mm,
Really being honest with myself. Did I market it? Like, did I get it out there enough with people? Did I put it out there enough times? Maybe it was the message off. You start getting curious instead of defeated, and you will get the answers.
mm,
Then learn to then make it work the next time.
yeah, yeah. It's like being able to say, "I wonder why," versus "I did it all wrong" is so freeing, and so empowering. And so I'm thinking, you've made this amazing journey. You said 2020 things kind of turned around. And I know, was it around 2020 that you started to, or you found human design? A quick little side note here. At this point, I was so excited to get into human design with Julie that I completely forgot to ask her what it actually is for anyone who's new to it. If you're listening and thinking, wait, what is human design? Don't worry, a bit later in the conversation, I catch myself and Julie gives a really clear explanation. For now, just know that we're talking about a self awareness and personal growth tool that Julie uses with her clients. Okay, back to the conversation.
No, I didn't
Yeah.
find human design or I actually found human design probably right before then, and I
Mhm.
continued to poo-poo it. I continued to go, "Yeah, no, this is weird." I my logical mind just shoved it aside probably 3 times, 3 different times,
Mhm.
and it was the 4th time that it all came together because I needed it now,
Mhm.
right? So I was on the hunt to help my clients and myself.
Mhm.
Um, I had been working so closely with Bob Proctor. Love, miss him. He's amazing. And the concepts of paradigms and the concepts of limiting beliefs and identity and that we are holding ourselves back, like, was I got that loud and clear. What I was having a challenge with my clients was helping them with, well, what are their specific paradigms?
Mhm.
What are their specific challenges and shadows that they are dealing with? They're different than mine and they're different from each other. And I could see that. And so a one size fits all approach, whether it's what I learned in the life coach school or what I learned through Bob, it just wasn't working. A
Mhm.
one size fits all approach. And so I just knew I was on the hunt and I tried a few different tools and still didn't give the same result the result that I wanted. And that's when I actually started to become more open to human design. I started to explore it for myself. And then I was like, this is it. Like I knew that this was it. And it was I actually started what I would say I started studying it for myself and then I had an inner circle of clients. I actually had a program that was called Inner Circle, so it was INHER circle,
Mhm.
and I said, "Guys, you ladies, um, I I'd love to start bringing this into our circle. I would really love to just, like, let's start doing this together and see what happens." And that's I always talk about co-creation, right? You're, like, co-creating with your clients.
Mhm.
We just all, like, dove in, and I was, ahead of where they were at, so I just kept bringing in more, and we just kept growing together, and the transformations
Mhm.
were insane. The shifts in people's frequency, how they were feeling about themselves, results, all the things that we were like, "Okay, this is working," and they were doing it for themselves because I have this whole concept for a long time, even before I ever brought in human design because self responsibility was such an important thing for me that we have to learn to self coach.
Mhm.
That you can't have your coach next to you every single moment of every day, that you're going to go into your battlefields. Maybe it's your kitchen, with your spouse. Maybe it's your workplace with your boss or with one of your kids. We're going to be in our battlefields and our coach is not going to be there.
Mhm.
So how do we self coach ourselves in the moment? How do we understand? I also had come out of spending $15,000 for a 4-hour VIP session with
Whoa.
with a master coach because I had all that growth in the business, which everyone wants. But also, I was like, I don't know that I'm building the right thing. I felt this pressure as well because now
Mhm.
that I'd had this success, this was early on. This was like the end of 2020. I'd had this success and I just was afraid it was going to fall away. Would my marriage was getting better because I was making money. So then I was like, but what if I'm not making money with the marriage? And I had all this like messed up like paradigm stuff going on in my head. And so I paid $15,000 for a 4-hour session to get underneath those limiting beliefs that were holding me back and all the things. Wouldn't you know, if I had just studied human design when it first came in front of me, I could have saved myself $15,000 because what because it was a husband-wife couple, coaches that I was working with in that $15,000 session. They basically uncovered the very thing that I learned in the very beginning of being in studying my human design. It's like within
Wow.
my core 4. It's basically that I have this tribal, life work where I was carrying the weight of my family's happiness, success, financial, everything on my shoulders. My own No one was doing that. I was doing it to myself.
Uh-huh.
And this constant tribal thing with my husband around money and this expectation. And so long story short, realizing that actually no wonder I'm feeling this way because it's actually how I'm wired. There's a very high frequency side to that, and there's a very low frequency side to that. And I was operating in the very low frequency of that. I couldn't see it, just like we
Uh-huh.
can't see the end of our own nose. So to me, I think the power of studying your own human design versus others, telling you all about you, when you get into it and you start studying it and you start like really getting a handle of awareness on your shadows and your gifts and just how you operate energetically, it
Mhm.
changes everything,
Yeah.
And so it was such a journey to get here. But it was one of co-creation and definitely like studying it with my clients.
Yeah. Yeah, and I probably should have asked before. Um, and I always chuckle because I had exactly the same response to human design. I was like, "Do I need a tinfoil hat? This sounds like nonsense." And I should have said, "What is human design?" for somebody who doesn't know what it is.
It's funny. There's a lot of different definitions of what it is. To me, my definition of it is that it is a self development and awareness tool that is based, for me, this is my definition, that's based in quantum physics, ancient wisdom, and the divine spirit that we have in every single one of us. And it's a
Mhm.
coming together of those three things. And it's a tool to truly help develop the awareness of self, which back to self responsibility and self awareness, probably the most powerful two things put together for a joyous, happy, successful, prosperous life. And so,
Mhm.
some would say it's a personality, assessment, and it's not. It's quite different in that pretty much every personality assessment or tool out there is basically your mind answering questions, right? You get an assessment, your mind answers questions, and then it spits out a type. So many times it's wrong. Even Myers-Briggs, right? So many of us are familiar with Myers-Briggs. Most people are typically a letter off of
Mm.
the Myers-Briggs, right? And it's because our mind is answering all the questions. Well, our mind is very conditioned, right? And the mind is holding all the paradigms, right? And
Yeah.
so really the paradigms are answering these questions, right?
Mhm.
And so the thing I love about human design is that it's a combination of personality and mind, but it's also your physiology. It's your actual body, your energetic being, which has a huge role in your life, right? Not just your mind. And so it really it bypasses the mind answering the questions. And I think that's what creates, I think, the most profound results as people study. Now, I'll tell you, I'm gonna because listen, this girl is logical, as much as she loves spiritual and science and all things, I also can be pretty logical. And I hold all of this loosely at the same time. There are people who will begin to study their human design and their mother will be on the phone with them and be like, "Yeah, no, you weren't born at that time. Or you were born here." Or like they'll find their birth certificate and it was different. And they'll run their report and it's actually there's some differences. And they're like, "Oh, but I was studying this." Listen, it's an awareness tool
Mhm.
that helps you speak to your soul. Your soul already knows. It's not a problem. It's like, so there are people where it might even be off. I really hold it loosely because I really believe that this tool allows you to commune with your actual spirit of yourself, what like the true North Star, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
versus the mind being so loud and all the things. So it's it's powerful. I still hold it loosely. There are some people that are like crazy, around human design. I really see it as a compliment to helping you get to that individual self-awareness to experiment with being who you have the potential to be
Yep.
rather than stuck in the paradigms and the low frequency of conditioning or society or your childhood or whatever. And so it's a self-awareness tool in so many ways.
Yeah. I said to someone recently, for me, I believe that human design is where self-compassion starts.
Mm, I love that.
And and I don't think you can attack yourself if you are in self-compassion. I I knew my patterns. I knew that there was I don't feel good enough, it's not safe to be visible. And I was doing a lot of work with those and I'd had a lot of progress. And when I really got to grips with what I was looking at in my body graph and my human design, I was like, ah, I could really give myself grace and compassion for why those things were happening. You
Yeah.
know, it was the framework, it was there. And then the patterns made sense and I could appreciate why that was happening. But the self-compassion piece was huge.
Huge. I
Absolutely.
love that. The perfect way to describe it. I mean, you give yourself grace
Yeah.
because you can then see, oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's why I'm okay. That's all right. And when you can love yourself with compassion, that's how you can not only love other people, but you can actually really love the goal and the dream you have too, because
Mm.
because you don't get in your own way,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
it's so powerful.
Yeah. And hoot with laughter when, I would realize why I was constantly following things that weren't really very good for me, constant looking outwards for why I was always easily led and, following these things that maybe weren't right for me because it made sense when I looked at my human design. And then when you can laugh, that's very soothing as well, you know?
100%. It's so
Yeah.
good. I love it
Yeah.
so much. I'm definitely a nerd when it comes to it. I'll study it. I think that the thing I love about self-development, growth, awareness is that no matter what someone believes spiritually, and I think what
Mm.
I love about our community is that we really represent pretty much almost every organized religion and
Mhm.
definitely a very broad array of spiritual practices and backgrounds and all the things. And I always say that that part, I say it doesn't matter. Of course it matters, but that part, that's not the part we're really concerned with. It's the part before that, which is
Mhm.
our job. Like, I really believe we have a job to do as well. We have to understand our gifts, understand ourselves, understand what we've been given, understand, these superpowers and genius we have inside of us, this purpose that we've been missioned with, and to understand ourselves so that we can
Mhm.
actually develop that deeper relationship, with what we do believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, so much of what we've talked about with courage and self-responsibility. And I think you shared, I know one of your mentors is big on the energy of courage and that courage comes before confidence. Like we don't need confidence first, we need courage. And when you're in moments of doubt and what am I doing? How do you stay anchored in courage?
Mm. Well, the beautiful part is that when you have courage and you then take action and then you see what happens, you get more courage. So it starts to build. And what I have found is that the courage actually comes more through like being okay with this might not be the right choice. This might not
Mhm.
go the way I think it's going to go. And being okay with that. Because I think what happens, especially a lot of us women, we want things to be perfect and we want it to go perfect and we don't want to fail. So we don't have the courage to do the thing because we're so afraid of failure or of, what are people going to think or all of those things? What if this doesn't work?
Mhm.
And I think that the courage you get the courage to take the action when you get okay with this might not go the way I think it's going to go. And that's okay.
Mhm.
Like it's not going to be the end of the world. We're going to give this a try and I'm going to be okay if it doesn't work. You start to get more courage and then it just builds. Like I'm not
Mhm.
the things I used to be afraid of, right? Especially in my business, the things I used to be afraid of that I'm no longer afraid of because I've conquered those fears because I had the courage. I have different fears now. And so then it becomes the more I do more of the things that make me uncomfortable, then that fear is going to go away too. So once you see evidence,
Mhm.
it makes it so much easier.
Yeah. And I also love that you talk about frequency a lot and shifting your energy rather than forcing your way forward. And for someone who's maybe hearing that for the first time, what does raising your frequency actually mean? And how has it changed the way that you lead and live?
I love to use the word attitude to help people, like, because sometimes frequency can seem a little, sometimes a little bit woo.
Yeah.
I find it very scientific
Yeah.
personally. I don't find it woo. I find it very scientific that, if you think of every cell in your body is vibrating, is it vibrating high? Is it vibrating low? Are you being like the light? Or are you being like heavy matter? I mean, there's
Mm.
the vibration. And I think that our attitude is indicative of our frequency. So
Mhm.
if you are about to do anything, any kind of action, if the attitude is poor, negative, um, low, not full of light, the outcome of that action will be different if you had a different attitude because your attitude is a perfect assessment of where are you vibrating high or low? Where is your frequency at? And
Mhm.
so I really like to think of like a heavy rock or pure light, you know, and
Yeah.
that's frequency. And it's the negative attitude or it's a really positive, um, like joyful, calm attitude. It's totally different. So, I think this is where that self coaching comes in, that self awareness comes in. Some people have no idea the
Yep.
impact that they make on others just in how they're being. Have you ever been around someone and they're not even saying anything and they're still affecting you negatively? Like
Mhm.
we all have that power. And people pick up we have an aura, right? We have an aura. Every single person knows what it feels like when you're in a room and someone comes into that room and they're in a low vibration, low frequency, low attitude. You can feel it without them saying a word, right? Why can we feel that? Because we can feel other people's energy. We're not really taught that very much, but we've experienced it our whole life. And that's what happens. If we are not in self-awareness, we could be wondering why on earth we are not getting a result that we want. Like, I'm doing all the things. Why am I not getting this result? I'm doing all the things, right? You hear people say that all the time. I'm doing everything. But if you're doing everything in a low frequency, you're not going to get a high frequency result. It's
Mm.
impossible. And
Mhm.
so Albert Einstein would say it, right? That if whatever reality you want, you have to be vibrating at the level of that frequency of that reality.
Yeah.
If otherwise you'll stay in the reality you're in. And he would say, this is not philosophy, it's physics. So if I'm talking to someone that like frequency doesn't really resonate, I just use the word attitude because
Yeah.
everyone can understand that.
Totally get that. Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting because you talk about we're shifting into the era of the individual. And for women in midlife who built their lives around stability, service, responsibility, that idea can feel exciting, but probably also a bit unsettling. So, what does the shift actually mean for women who sense there's something more for them?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a great time to be alive. I mean, you could talk to probably most people right now and they'd be like, "It's a terrible time. There's so many bad things going on and all the things," right? To me, as a female on this planet, they talk about you got to have self-responsibility, right?
Hmm.
Um, I've actually never been more excited about the future, and what is ahead of us is our time. That's how I feel. I feel like we are going into our time. We have been living in a very masculine energy for centuries, centuries. And we are now moving into a more feminine energy. And that's not male or female. That is just yin and yang and a different energy. And it's the masculine energy and the energy of the last 400 years. We have all seen it. We know history. We've seen what's happened. It has been about expansion and governments and systems and structures and the collective being taken care of as a whole and all the things, right? Um,
Hmm.
and it's not that all of that's going away. The good will be preserved, the needed will be preserved, but that people will have more autonomy on their lives, more self-responsibility. I mean, we talk this word self-responsibility has come up a lot in this episode, and it is the
Hmm.
era of
Yeah.
self-responsibility is what we're going into. And it's about you actually knowing what's right for you and not a guru. And we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing evidence of this everywhere you turn. You look at healthcare, people for the first time are taking way more control of their own healthcare and learning and studying and going to a variety of doctors before they land on what the solution that's right for them versus you used to just go to the doctor, a doctor would tell you what to do and you went and did it, you know? I mean, total changes there. I mean, here in the United States, I'm not sure how it is in New Zealand, but we're seeing homeschooling is going up at rates we've
Hmm.
never seen before. People aren't happy with the system, the school system itself. We're seeing it in government. We're seeing it in corporate. So many people are leaving corporate for entrepreneurship and other things. So we're seeing it everywhere around us. And I think that what it's going to require, and I do think a lot of people are feeling it. So I think that there's this pull.
Hmm.
People are feeling like they're meant for more. There's something, else they're meant to be doing. Answer that because that is a call into this new era. And it's a call to realize that the door is open, the prison cell is not locked, that
Hmm.
you do have that autonomy right now, whether you believe that or not yet. That's part of the journey. But this is about the spirit of the individual
Mm.
of being able to trust self, knowing that self is actually tied to spirit.
Mm.
And really, it's a really exciting time. It's going to be hard for some people
Yeah.
who don't trust themselves or
Mm.
have a hard time with that self responsibility, but it's also an opportunity to grow those skills
Yeah.
and to start to listen to your own inner voice instead of the gurus and the leaders and, all these people that were like, I'm going to use air quotes in charge, right?
Yeah.
Like who decided that anyway? Like who decided all these different people are going to be in charge of all of our decisions, right? This is a time of, I think, freedom.
Mm.
Uh, but it's going to require some self-awareness and growth for people to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really exciting because you redefine prosperity as self expression, right? So, what a better time to be going into the era of the individual. And I just wonder how you define success now, and how that differs from what success used to mean for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to me, success is being able to fully step into your perfect self expression for certain. If you do not love what you are doing and where you're spending your time most days, that's hard. And that to me is the definition of not having success. I don't care how much money you make, right? I
Hmm.
mean, I made lots of money when I was at IBM. I was not happy. I felt trapped. That did not feel like success to me. And success to me is being able to do what I am here to do, no matter how I have to do that. If I had to downsize and sell my house again and go into an even smaller home or whatever, I would do it
Mm.
for the ability to still do my perfect self-expression rather than, well, I guess I got to give that up so I can have this definition of success. No way. No
Wow.
way. No way.
Mm.
Especially after living it and tasting it now for like 7 years, like,
Mm.
y there is no way I wanna, like, let this go because it just to me, there's no better success than waking up on Mondays, we say TGIM, thank God it's Monday, just so happy in the work
Mm.
that I get to do. It's why I do get up at 4 AM. 4
Yeah.
AM to 7 AM every morning is my time to do my perfect self-expression. It's when I create all the content for my clients. It's when
Mm.
I'm writing my books and, speaking to my clients in a daily podcast and all the things. Like, to me, that's my happy place.
Mhm.
That is my happy place. And that's success. If you are
Yeah.
spending more of your time doing what you love with the people that you love, having experiences that you love, you're winning. It's not about how much money you're making.
Mm. Mm. And I think that that shines so beautifully out of 50 Not Finished because there's such like a deep sense of hope running through it. We really get to be in charge if we choose to. And I'm just thinking about the woman who's listening in her own rocking chair moment, scared, uncertain, knowing she can't keep going, but having no idea what to do. What would you want to say to her?
That you're not alone,
Mm.
that keep yourself tethered to podcasts like this. Keep yourself tethered. Like, I will tell you, I was listening all the time to things. So going on
Mhm.
walks, listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts, filling my cup with what was possible. Because when you are sitting there and you can't see it for yourself yet,
Mhm.
because we can even make a decision we're going to go after something. But if we can't see the evidence of it yet in our life, it can get really hard to stay the course and to
Yeah.
make the tough decisions. That's why you got to tether yourself to people and stories and their words and their encouragement so that you stay tethered to the possible because it's going to feel impossible for you at first. I can
Mhm.
think back listening to episodes of podcasts or audiobooks and thinking, will I ever like get to where this person's at and be able to say and share what they're sharing? Like, it doesn't
Mhm.
feel like it. It felt like so impossible to me what people that had a business like I have now, like it just didn't even seem possible. Like, it really didn't.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I kept listening and I kept learning and I kept observing, like, what did they do and how were they being? That's another big one, is how are they being? If someone has something you desire, don't just ask them the question or listen for the answer of what did they do? I want you to listen to who they were being.
Mm.
What were they feeling? What were they thinking? What was their attitude? That's going to give you more clues than whatever strategy they took, right?
Mm.
And so stay tethered to this kind of content because it will show you what's possible. And especially when you're not quite seeing those results for yourself yet.
Mm. Mm. Which leads brilliantly into for this at this point in your life, Julie, what does self-courage and responsibility look like for you? Who is future Julie going to thank you for being now?
Ooh, you just gave me a full body chills when you asked me that question because I knew it the second you said it. I knew what the answer was. That's coming from my soul, not my mind.
Mm.
Um, and that is I'm going to get teary eyed as I say this. I have been building where I've come to at this point. I have been building one, because I also needed to, like, for me not to go back to corporate and to have a sustainable business and to, right. And like hiring the team to get the business to where it is has been one phase, 7-year journey phase. I know I'm embarking on the next phase now. And I feel that I've been given a mission. I've been given a purpose that is so far beyond me. And I know I'm being asked to shepherd it, to steward it, and that I have to play much bigger to make that happen. And there's a part of me that wants to like curl up and not do that. Um, I'm like, things are great right now, But
Mm,
I know, like, especially with 50 Not Finished, like, I know that there is a message and a mission that I'm meant to get out in an even bigger way than I have.
mm.
And so I know that's the next phase for me. I know that's what's coming. And I think what gets me excited is when I think of my future self, that she's saying right now, like, I know this is scary and you like being in your home and you like being able to like, to keep to play the level you've been playing, but you're being called. And I can promise you once you get here, you're going to be so glad that you did because you're going to help millions of women.
Wow.
And I believe in that collective frequency shift.
Mm,
That Dr. David Hawkins, I reference him quite often in my book, that even one person operating at a higher frequency has a broader impact on the many than one person that is in a negative attitude, a negative energy. And so we really are like that powerful. And
mm,
so each individual person with the ripple effect that they can have. And so I just know that I'm being called for a bigger impact. I kind of feel a little bit like Bob Proctor when he was 50. I mean, it was after he was 50
mhm,
that he started to really get his message out in a bigger way across the globe. And I really do feel like I'm just getting started, with 50 Not Finished, just getting started. I do feel that in my bones, and it's exciting and scary at the same time because it's going to require growth. It's going to require stamina. It's gonna require, consistency and clarity in the message that I'm bringing forth, so I'm here for the challenge. I'm ready for this next phase, but it is gonna require some pretty big personal growth.
mm, mm. And I think the people that are in your community, we feel that and we're coming with you and it's exciting and there are going to be more people coming with you. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. I just love hearing about your journey. And I think the impact that you are having is massive and you will continue to have that impact on millions and importantly for people who want to find out more about you or look at what you offer, where can we find you?
So I would say one of my favorite things is if this episode, has impacted you in any way, I actually love to know. So you can find me
Mhm.
at Instagram, Julie Ciardi, right there, and you can actually send me a message. Let me know what from this episode you took away. And if you love this episode, both Kelly and I would be so grateful if you could even just screenshot it and share it on whatever social platform you're on. It means the world because podcasts like this, as I've said, is so important to help people be able to see what's possible and have that support in the pursuit of what's possible. So definitely make sure that you share that with others so that they can hear it because it's so powerful. And I usually have free masterclasses and all great things going on. So if you go over to Instagram and actually give me a follow and send me a message, I'll let you know what good is going on too. Like we always have something good going on in our community. So
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
thank you so much. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Stepping Off the Path. If Julie's story moved you, inspired you, or gave you a spark of courage, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message on Instagram or LinkedIn and let me know what landed for you. And if you know a woman who's in her own rocking chair moment, please share this episode with her. Stories like this change lives. I'll see you on the next one.